Ariana. Some kids collect seashells and marbles, but I collect scars and stories. Being a cranial warrior lets me share my superpowers in ways that are not always seen.
And my name is Anaira. I am the storyteller who shares these adventures. There are cranial warriors everywhere, and September is our month to shine.
We are very excited and honored to welcome Patricia Chibaro. For many years, she was a pediatric nurse practitioner at the Mind-Based Center for Craniofacial Care at NYU. She is now part of the Mind-Based family and has helped craniofacial kids for more than 30 years. She helps make the journey a little lighter and a lot more hopeful.
Miss Patricia, you host the Nurse Practitioner Show on Sirius XM Doctor Radio. What's it like to be on the other side of the microphone?
It's really fun to be here with you. I'm so honored, and it's fun to be on the other side of the microphone. So thanks so much for letting me join. And just to let people know what that is, so it's now been, it'll be 20 years soon, but in 2008, the Dr. Radio show on Sirius started from the lobby of NYU, and they have all different specialties, surgical, medical, all types of specialties. And I used to be on the plastic surgery show a lot, and then I decided to speak up and ask if I could have my own show so that we could show the nursing perspective. And so since 2010, I have hosted the Nurse Practitioner Show on Dr. Radio, and that gives me the opportunity to share the different specialties of nursing with all the listeners around the country. And so I'm really excited to be able to host that show. So thanks for asking me about that. And maybe one day you two will come on my show, because I just did a show for September being Craniofacial Acceptance Month. So, and I did one in July for Craniofacial Awareness Month. So thank you so much for asking about that.
Now we have a fun game, but before we do that, what exactly is craniosynostosis about?
So craniosynostosis is a condition which it's rare. So and when you look up the incidence of it, it's probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 1 in 25, 1 in 2,000, 1 in 2,500, and there are two types of craniosynostosis: isolated and syndromic. And the syndromic craniosynostosis syndromes are actually syndromes, and so they're more complicated. So craniosynostosis is when a baby is born. Generally, there are bones of the skull that are separated by spaces. They call them sutures. And so those spaces allow for the brain to grow, because we know when a baby's born, the brain is not at its full size, and so it expands. And so when a baby is born with craniosynostosis, what that means is that one or more of those spaces or sutures is fused. And what that means is that it's closed. And as a result of that, the normal rounded head shape is changed. And the type of head shape a baby has depends on which suture is closed. And so that's isolated, what's called isolated craniosynostosis, when there's no other finding, no other symptom, nothing else going on medically except that space or suture is closed. And that's as opposed to syndromic craniosynostosis. And there are different types of syndromes. And that involves not only closure, usually of more than one of the spaces, but it also comes with other facial differences and sometimes some medical problems that the kids may have. So that's sort of the broad explanation of craniosynostosis.
Okay.
So the first question is, myth or fact? If a baby wears a helmet long enough, a fused suture can unfuse on its own.
Myth. That is not true. You can't unfuse a suture just by putting a helmet on.
Okay. Next question. Myth or fact? Kids with craniosynostis should not do PE or cartwheels after they're healed.
After they're healed?
Yeah.
Okay, so that question, it's a little hard to say myth or fact. What I would say is, depending on the age and the timing of that surgery, we would not want kids to go and do cartwheels, stand on their head a week after surgery. But yes, eventually, and every team is different, in terms of how long they want kids to have restrictions on gym or doing cartwheels. But it's not a forever thing. It could be just a few weeks, sometimes longer, months, it really depends. But know that once you have that surgery, you can no longer do PE or karate or gymnastics. You can do, kids who have had craniosynostosis can eventually do whatever they want.
So the third question is, craniosynostosis always affects only one part of the skull.
That's a myth, because as I was saying in the beginning, craniosynostosis can involve the closure of one or more of those sutures or spaces. And what's important to know is that the more sutures or spaces that are closed, the more the child is at risk for having some problems with pressure, because the brain can't grow freely. And so that's why it's important right away to identify, does this baby just have one suture closed, or are there more than one? And so that's very important. And that's why it's really important for kids once they're born, and if something is noticed, to go to a good craniofacial team who can right away, the minute we see kids, we almost can know what's going on.
The next question is that twins are more likely to have craniosynostosis than singletons.
And that's a fact. So we know that twins are more likely to have craniosynostosis. And they, what are the reasons? Well, one of the reasons could be when there are twins in there, it's a little more crowded, and it can affect the skull, and sometimes could result in one of the babies, sometimes both, but often it's just one of the kids who has craniosynostosis.
And the last question for myth or fact is,
I hope I get it right.
So the last question is, courage, patience, and humor are just as important for cranial warriors as medical care.
Absolutely a fact. It's very, very important. Going through medical treatment and surgeries especially, it's a lot, and so I think it's important to have a lot of positive around you and within you. So yeah, that's definitely a fact.
Next we want to ask the questions that really show what it's like to be a cranial warrior.
Go for it.
So the first question is, how can kids stay brave on scary surgery days?
Such a good question. Well, I think the first thing is, and I think that depends on how old they are, is when they know that they're going to be having surgery in advance, to talk to their parents about it, to ask their questions, to not be afraid to tell parents that they're afraid. That's okay. I think sometimes kids don't want their parents to worry about them, so they don't tell them that they're scared or that, they're afraid of something. So ask the questions before. I think also is when you're going to have surgery, when you're going in to have surgery, what is it that makes you feel comfortable? Is it, having your sister or your best friend there with you? What can make the experience of going through medical treatment or surgery easier for you? And get that kind of support, because that can be really helpful.
Yeah. So the second question is, how do we cranial warriors explain our journey to friends without feeling weird? Because once I was trying to explain to my best friend, and I didn't really have the right words to explain.
Ladies, such a good question. So I think that the important thing is to be honest with kids, especially with your friends, because they're the ones that, they need to know things about you so that they can understand it better and they can support you. And something like craniosynostosis, it's such a rare thing. Nobody really knows about it until it becomes part of your world, right? So I think what you can do if one of your friends says, how come it looks like your forehead, like something's going on here? And you can say, well, I was born, and just like what I explained, when babies are born, there are these little spaces, and sometimes you can even show a picture. I've had kids go in and, talk to their class about it and it sounds so crazy, but here's a picture, here's a little skull, and here's the little spaces. And, you need to respect kids to understand that, like they need to learn about things. And I think once they know that this is just something that happened, something that wasn't your fault, wasn't your parents' fault, it just happened and it was fixed, and that the most important thing is that you can do anything that any of your friends do. I think that's what's really important to let them know. But yeah, I think especially, if they ask and they're curious, education, is everything. And I think that's why we have this Craniofacial Awareness Month, right? And the Craniofacial Acceptance Month, so that we can teach the people around us who don't understand and sometimes judge us just because of the way we look. So yeah, talk to them, explain, do a little teaching.
And the last question is, how do we know we are more than our surgeries?
Wow, how do we know that? Well, I think that from the very, very beginning, parents, it's because your parents are doing such a wonderful job of making you understand that you are you first, and you are you who happens to have had this condition and happens to need surgeries, and that there are many people who have different types of challenges or different types of medical conditions, but that's not what defines them. You are not craniosynostosis. You are a girl who was born with craniosynostosis. It's a part of who you are, and surgeries are a part of your life experiences.
Now we're going to ask questions from the siblings' point of view. So my first question is, how can siblings help without feeling so overwhelmed themselves?
I think that's such an important question. I think often, and I've thought about this a lot as the nurse practitioner on the team, that I don't think as I look back, did I spend enough time understanding the journey of the siblings? So I think what's important, I think especially if you're the older sibling and your younger sibling has this condition, I think you always feel like you want to protect them. And I think that that's important to be able to do that. But I think it's also important for the siblings, just to know that you really care about them and that you're there to help them whenever. But it's I think being a sibling is a challenge, because I think too that sometimes you might feel badly, like if you complain about something and, then you think, oh, I shouldn't be complaining because my sister has craniosynostosis and has to go through this. I think, the most important thing is that, you're there when they need you, and that they know that you just really care about them and that you are there to help them. But it's hard, I think, sometimes to be that sibling. And I think I think what's important is that if you feel uncomfortable at all with, what's going on with your sibling, just, let them know that, that you talk to your parents about it and talk to your sibling about it. But sometimes you do feel weird, but I think the most important thing is just to know how much you care about and love your sister. And then you'll act, you'll do the right thing with them.
My next question is, how can siblings help during the recovery phase?
So during the recovery, I think you know your sibling better than anyone, right? What makes them happy? What makes them comfortable? I think, coming, especially if they're in the hospital for more than a few days, coming in there and bringing their favorite things. And, sometimes it's just sitting with them and watching your favorite movie or, whatever it is that makes them comfortable and makes them happy. I think that's the most important thing. And sometimes it's just sitting there with them, especially if they're not feeling well, if they're uncomfortable. I think just, sometimes you're just being there and sometimes, so for kids with craniosynostosis, sometimes when they have their surgeries, their eyes get swollen and they close and they can't even see for a little while. And having a voice, having a touch of your sibling, I think that just being there is really helpful.
My next question is it common for cranial warriors to undergo bullying?
To undergo, I'm sorry, what?
Bullying.
Bullying. Yeah, I know. I think that I'm hoping that bullying, especially at school, has gotten better over the years, because what I have found is that schools are really very sensitive to it, and you can't just say anymore, oh well, that's a phase kids are going through, they tease and bully each other. Not acceptable. So I think that children especially, definitely with any kind of difference, and doesn't just have to be a facial difference, are still more likely to be bullied, and that's where it's important to be able to, when you are friends with someone with a facial difference or any difference, and certainly if you're a sibling, is if you're seeing someone being bullied, that you need not just to be a bystander, right? And we learned this in the book Wonder, not to be just a bystander where you see it, but to be an upstander, right? And I know you guys know about this, where you get up and you do something to help that person. For example, you say to them, hey, you want to come and play with me or sit with me, have lunch with me? But yeah, to answer your question, the kids, cranial warriors are more likely to be bullied. Hopefully less than years ago when I first started working, where many kids used to really be bullied a lot. And in fact, you know what used to happen? I used to have some kids who would ask me to write a letter for them saying that they didn't have to go to school just because they were being bullied, not because of surgeries or anything like that. So hopefully it's better.
My last question is what's one thing on the internet about craniosynostis that you just wish would go away?
I think the problem that I have with the internet in general is there's a lot of good information there, but there's also a lot of misinformation, because anyone can post on the internet, right? And if someone has themselves, for example, a bad experience with a team, or just puts on some information about craniosynostosis that just isn't accurate medically, scientifically, and people look at it without really understanding who wrote this, whose site is this, that I think is what bothers me the most. I'm so glad that the internet does exist. I will tell you, when I first started in my job a long time ago, there was no internet. Can you imagine, girls? No internet, no social media, no cell phones, so when a baby was born with craniosynostosis, not only did the parents not know what was going on, but even the medical team often didn't know what was going on. And so the internet is a wealth of information, but it also can still have some misinformation. And I think that's what I wish would go away. I wish that only things that are scientifically accurate would get posted. And boy, we know that's not just about craniosynostosis, right? That's about a lot of different things where there's a lot of misinformation. So it's really important that whenever if you are yourself a cranial warrior or a family member or a friend, make sure that if you see something on the internet that that worries you or you don't think is right and you have questions, you want to talk to your team about it. You want to talk to the people that are the experts. So that's always what I recommend. That's a great question.
So now we are going to be talking about healthy eating and a fun game. Except first, healthy food isn't just yummy. It helps cranial kids recover, grow, and build super strength inside and out. So now we have some true or false questions. The first one is, protein helps muscles and bones recover after craniosurgery.
Okay.
Yes.
Eating rainbow-colored fruits and veggies help cranial kids grow strong.
Absolutely.
Skipping meals makes you grow taller faster.
Come on. No way.
Only big meals help your body recover. Snacks don't count.
No, snacks are really important. And I think what we found after, especially after kids have surgery, is that we encourage them to have smaller meals, because sometimes it just takes a while to feel well enough to eat. And that also there are healthy snacks, right?
Yeah.
I think that snacks are important too.
And then the next question is, eating extra carrots can help your bones heal faster.
I don't think so. I think carrots are good, but there's lots of other things that I think that you need to eat as well.
And eating ice cream can replace vegetables for healthy recovery.
I love that, but no. But have ice cream anyway, for sure. You know what is a problem is that so there are other craniofacial conditions, as you know, and with a lot of the conditions, the kids have to have jaw surgery, right? So after they have surgery, they can't really chew or eat very well. So, sometimes the kids will say, oh, so I don't care, I'm just going to eat ice cream all the time. So what's the problem with eating ice cream all the time? I know you guys know the answers, but a couple of things. One is that the sugar content is, just the effect it can have on their teeth, not a good thing. And just having too much sugar in terms of affecting their body. But, the other thing is that you get this, you eat too much sugar, you get this sugar rush where then you have these highs and lows and you don't feel well. So there you are recovering from surgery, and then you're eating all this sugar and you're not feeling well. And so that's why I always will say to the parents, and we have our dietitian meet with everybody about what to eat after surgery, because it's hard, and so that's why it's important that you balance everything. But yeah, I know a lot of kids want to just eat that ice cream. Me too, sometimes.
So the next question is, water helps your body feel energetic and recover faster.
Yeah, water is very important, definitely. But the one thing with water is sometimes people drink too much water. So that can become a bit of a crazy thing. Do you know, it's so funny because years ago, we couldn't have water bottles in our classroom. Like if you at lunch, you got to have some water, in the morning before you went to school. But water is such a thing now that sometimes it's a little too much. And the other thing too is if you drink so much water, sometimes then you don't want to eat. So you got to sort of balance it out. But water is important. Absolutely.
Okay. My last question for our
I love these questions. You guys are amazing.
Thank you. My last question for a healthy eating game is that, true or false, laughing and playing helps your body feel better.
100%. Oh man, absolutely. I remember I had surgery, and it was hard to laugh in the beginning, because sometimes when you laugh, depending on where you have surgery, it hurts. But once I was feeling a little bit better, it really helped my spirits. It helped me feel better and get better sooner. So absolutely, definitely.
Okay, so now we're going to do some questions on the day in the life and a rapid fire.
This last segment is going to be a roller coaster of laughs, stories, and speedy answers.
I'm nervous.
First question is, if your day had a theme song, what would it be?
If my day had a theme song, a theme song,
Yeah, theme song. Theme song.
I would say "Happy." You know that song by Pharrell Williams, "Happy." I feel pretty happy most of the time, so I would say that's my song for the day. It's "Happy."
Okay.
What's one small thing in your day that makes you really happy?
That's an easy one. So let me show you my T-shirt. See, it says Nona. So we have a grandson who's now 2 years old, and his name is Luca. And just anytime I see a picture of him, and I see them every day because our daughter every single day texts us pictures of our grandson, that makes me the happiest. Seeing my little guy.
What's your favorite way to make a kid smile on a tough day?
That's a tough one. I think, well, there's a couple of different things, but I think the most important thing is to give that kid a hug and say, it's going to get better. It's going to get better. But acknowledge that some days are tough.
And what's one thing you want every Cranio kid to know about being brave?
About being brave. Being brave is hard sometimes, but it's a really important thing for you to be, but it's some days are harder than others, and it's okay. There's some days where it's okay not to feel brave and to get more help from the people you love on those days.
What's one thing you hope kids will remember about you when they leave the clinic?
So, I'm retired now, but I did take care of kids for 34 years. And some of those kids I took care of from even before they were born. Because, when you have a cleft lip and palate, you can often see that on a sonogram. And so I have kids that I have followed for many, many years. But I think what I feel best about is when a child has surgery and comes back and has gone through a recovery, and they all say to me, thanks for helping make it a little bit easier for me. Thanks for being there. I think and to know that I care.
Yeah.
So now we're going to be doing a rapid fire where you have to answer in under 5 seconds.
Oh.
So the first question is ice cream, cone, or cup?
Oh, definitely cup, because I feel like I can get more.
If you could teleport, where would you go first?
Oh, honestly, I would come right here to New Hampshire, where I am today, to hug my grandson.
Book you could read over and over again.
Oh, To Kill a Mockingbird, I think.
Your favorite cartoon as a kid?
Wow. It's not a cartoon, but it was a little series called The Little Rascals.
Okay.
If you could have any animal as a tiny office assistant, what would it be?
Oh my goodness. So wait, I'll show you. So we have a dog. I have him on my shirt. Here he is.
Oh,
That's
so cute.
the Bernese Mountain Dog. And she weighs 75 pounds. And I would love to have her in my office at my feet every day.
If your shoes could talk, what would they say about you?
She has a lot of energy, and she never stops not only walking but talking.
And our last and final question for this interview is if your clipboard could sing a song, what would it be?
So always something by James Taylor, who's my favorite. And I would say, oh my goodness, there's so many. Let me think. I think Shower the People. I don't know if you know his music, but he wrote a song called Shower the People You Love with Love. So I love that song because it just makes me think about all the people in my life and how loved I am and want to give that love back. So that's on my clipboard.
Thank you so much, Miss Patricia. Thank for showing us what it means to care with all of your heart and taking the time to do this interview.
As Cranio As craniofacial warriors and siblings, we know that every challenge is a story of courage and hope.
September is our month to shine. Come join us at Races for Faces on September 21st at Pier 62 in NYC, New York.
And if you're interested in getting involved with Races for Faces, either with registering to walk in person or virtually or to donate, you want to go to our website, myface.org, and go to the menu and click on under ways to get involved. You'll see Races for Faces, and you can join one of the teams or make your own little team or just donate. Everything is appreciated. Thanks so much.